Okay, I just hit the record button. And we have 13 ready to come in. You guys ready? Okay, here goes. Yay, folks are coming in.
Hello, Micki.
Hi there. Good to see everyone.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Hi, Micki.
Hi there.
All right, I can hear you guys. Yay, success.
Yay. Okay. Hi, Senator Boles. Okay, well, yeah, people keep coming in here. I want to make sure I'm not leaving anybody out. Okay, well, let's get started because we don't have a lot of time, especially for this first segment with 3 candidates, and I'm glad you're all here. Welcome to the West Salem Neighborhood Association's candidate meet and greet. My name is Micki Varney, and I am the current chair of our neighborhood association. I wanted to let you know I am recording this just so that I can post it on YouTube so that those folks that haven't, were not able to attend tonight have an opportunity to view it. So I just wanted to let you know that. Everyone, tomorrow is the last day to register to vote. So might remind friends if they've moved recently, they need to get registered to vote. First of all, I wanted to introduce our timekeeper. Steve Van Pelt will be the timekeeper, and he is the chair of our Inclusion and Welcoming Committee. And then the moderator for this evening is Jason Staats. Jason is a West Salem business owner, and he's also current co-chair pro tem of our neighborhood association. So Jason, if you want to take over, you're going to lead the show tonight.
All right, thank you, Micki. I'm excited. Thank you to all of our participants for being here. Just to get started, at the beginning of each half-hour segment of the event, candidates will have 3 minutes to introduce themselves. After that, we will open up the floor to a few questions from meeting attendees as long as time will allow. Because of the short time segments, candidates will be allowed up to 2 minutes to answer each question. Questions may be directed to all candidates or to individual candidates. Event attendees will be asked to submit their questions, or are asked to submit their questions via chat, and the moderator, Steve, Micki, and I will be handling this. So I will ask the questions to the candidate. So please make sure for those who have questions, after the introductions are finished, please make sure your questions go into the chat. And we will keep an eye on them and get those asked for you. Also, if just housekeeping, if everybody can make sure that your mic is muted if you are not speaking, then that will help decrease any kind of background noise. So first, I'd like to welcome Senator Boles and Ms. Patterson, who is also running for Senate District 10, and Mr. Rickey, who is also running for Senate District 10 as well. And Senator Boles, we will start with your 3-minute introduction.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. Thank you for hosting this. This is a great opportunity for us to get together again and talk about things that are important to this community. I'm State Senator Denyc Boles. I feel very lucky to have spent nearly my entire life here in the Salem area. I'm a graduate of Sprague High School, so don't hold that against me, West Salem folks. We're all for Salem here. I ultimately got married here, raised 3 kids who attended the same public schools that my husband and I attended. I started my career and now I'm honored to have the opportunity to represent this community in the state capitol as their senator. To this day, my family lives in the same South Salem house that I grew up in, and I love this community and especially the people who live here. As a kid, like most of my friends, I grew up picking strawberries on our local fruit farms and learned the value of a hard day's work during graveyard shifts at the local cannery in the summers. I've owned and operated several small businesses. I've served as a chief advisor to local elected leaders and currently work in community relations at Salem Health. For the past few years, I've been fortunate to serve first as a member of the Oregon State House and now as a member of the Oregon State Senate. I've always been a problem solver, whether it's something that comes up in my professional life, in our community, or at home with my family. My instinct is to want to jump in and help solve it. I think a lot of people in our community just want a few basic things from their government: safe communities, strong schools, access to healthcare, and an affordable cost of living. Senate District 10 isn't a hotbed of partisan politics. The vast majority of our friends and neighbors want leaders who will use some common sense to improve this community, and that's the kind of leader that I've tried to be. I truly value my deep roots and shared values that I learned in this community, and these ideals inform each and every decision that I make as your state senator. Thanks again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Boles. I appreciate you being here this evening. We will now turn the floor to Ms. Patterson.
Yes, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for the opportunity and good evening to you all. I'm Reverend Dr. Deborah Patterson. I go by Deb, and I'm the Democratic nominee for Oregon State Senate in District 10, and I'm really grateful for the chance to be able to speak with you this evening. I'm running because we need better health care for more people for less money. I've been a healthcare advocate for over 20 years. For a decade, I ran an international health organization partnering with more than 15,000 registered nurses to help people access needed healthcare. I know that we can do better here too. I'm also the mom of 2 young adults, one with special needs, and I'm running for an Oregon that leaves no one behind. We need strong schools with good after-school programs, and we need affordable childcare, an affordable college, and vocational training opportunities. We need to invest in apprenticeship programs since not everyone is going to college. And to grow our economy, we need to help small business owners who are responsible for more than half the jobs in our region. Affordable housing is a huge issue in our community and in our state. I know you can see that in a very personal way here in West Salem with the folks who are residing without housing in Wallace Marine Park, along with elsewhere in the greater Salem area. There's a long wait for subsidized housing and stiff competition for affordable housing on the open market. We also need affordable long-term care because I've seen too many seniors who've had to spend down to near destitution to afford the care they need. As a mom, I care deeply about the future for our children. I believe that we need clean energy jobs with living wages to help the environment. For nearly 30 years, I've been ordained congregational clergy, and I currently serve a rural congregation here in the Mid-Willamette Valley. I grew up on a farm, and I'm very comfortable bridging the urban-rural divide because I've lived it, and I continue to live it to this day. You can be sure that I'm also faithful and diligent about showing up for work and working across the aisle. I live in South Salem, but I'm running to serve the whole district for an Oregon that works for everyone. I'm convinced that my qualifications and experience make me the best candidate to represent the citizens of Oregon State District 10. Thank you.
And thank you, Reverend Dr. Patterson, Deb. We appreciate you being here. Our last candidate for, but not least, for Senate District 10 is Mr. Taylor Rickey.
Thank you. Hello, neighbors. I'm Taylor Rickey. I am a West Salem resident. My wife and I actually just bought our house on West Farthing after living over on Banyonwood for a while. I'm running for Senate District 10 to bridge the divide between Republicans and Democrats that has taken over our communities and our country. I'm a libertarian. I believe that the greatest minority is the individual, and we must protect that minority. I am running to help with the homeless crisis, our criminal justice reform, and to reduce taxes. I am not a career politician or even a politician. I'm a stay-at-home dad. I have a 5-year-old son and 3 adult stepdaughters. I'm a normal Oregonian that's tired of the walkouts, that's tired of the partisan attacks and the gridlock that gets nothing done. I'm running to go in and make a change, and I hope you vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rickey. We appreciate you being here this evening. And would like to say good luck to all of our candidates. And we will open up the floor now to any questions. If there are any questions, please make sure to place those questions in the chat so that we can address those. And we'll give just a second here to see if we've got any questions from our attendees. While we are waiting, it looks like we've got a question coming in. And while we're waiting for that question, if each of the candidates could please just talk about what they are going, how they see the current homeless crisis and what they intend to do about that crisis during their term for Senate District 10. And we'll start with Senator Boles.
Great, thank you. I wasn't sure if I was getting the one question, or is it the homeless question? You're asking all of us?
Yeah, we'll start with that and
Okay.
we'll come back to those questions.
Perfect.
Yeah, just want to make sure we're moving along.
So yeah, it's no surprise that we have a real crisis in this community. And, I think that Reverend Patterson mentioned, the West Salem and what's happening down near the waterfront. And it's all, it goes out to Gateway in this eastern part of this district. And we've been working on this with, I think the thing that we need to do is look at the city, the county, nonprofits, and the state, and all of those things working together. I serve on the Committee on Housing, and one of the things that I've been really bothered by is making sure that the resources that are allocated get into the communities that they're allocated for. And so I've been a real advocate with working with Arches and Community Action. And the other big part of this that we really haven't looked at, that I'm looking forward to being a better voice and a bigger voice this next session, is dealing with kind of that transition period of kids that are aging out of foster care and kids that are in the early 20s. And we have a very, very limited resources that are going to that particular age group. And so I think the state has an opportunity and really an obligation to make sure that resources are getting to the places that they're most needed. And I introduced a bill in my last term trying to prioritize foster kids and aging out of the foster care when you're getting subsidized housing and other opportunities. And that got hung up in a lot of legislative ease. So we're going to come back and revisit that. But these are things that both parties can work together really well on, and making sure that we have not only avenues to get into housing, but also there's a whole mental health piece of this that we need to talk about as pairing with this issue. So it's a big one, and we all know that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Reverend Dr. Patterson, would you please also comment? You have 2 minutes.
Well, absolutely. There was $50 million as bipartisan support for $50 million for housing, transitional housing for people shelters and transitional housing for people living without housing during the February short session, which was left on the table during the walkout. That $5 million of that was for a navigation center to help with mental health services and social services that would be needed by folks who are currently living without housing. So I'm sorry that that money for housing wasn't able to be spent. That would look like it was going to be allocated. This other thing I would say is I believe I differ from the other candidates in this race, and that I don't believe the answer to solving our housing crisis right now is simply through charity. I think we also need to refund HUD, which has been defunded by 75% since the Reagan era. And then we need to work at the state level, at the county level, the city level, and the neighborhood association level together to get the, to move forward in having some more subsidized housing. There's some wonderful subsidized housing in West Salem, not enough of it. Market rate housing is not ever going to be accessible to everyone. Of course, we need more market rate housing as well. And so I would be support wise land use and zoning policies that would take into consideration the character of the neighborhood when new housing is built, and not just have cookie cutter large developments as well. So that's how I would say it. I believe this is an issue that takes all hands on deck, but charity is not enough to solve it. However, we have to stay at work and work together to get things done and not walk out.
Thank you. Mr. Rickey, if you'd like to comment on the homeless crisis as well, you have 2 minutes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jason. I have a unique perspective from both my opponents. When I was a senior in high school, my mom was going through a divorce. She broke her foot and I had to drop out and work. Unfortunately, I didn't work enough to save the house. So we ended up homeless, and we ended up in a women's shelter that took in kids, and my brother, my mom, and I lived there. Charities work. We need to fund our charities. At the end of the day, the homeless population, they're still people. They're our neighbors. It could be anyone for any given set of circumstances. I think when addressing homelessness, we need to keep the government out of it, because they do more harm than they help. Not intentionally, but inadvertently. Like Deb Patterson said, there's money on the table to address the problems, but politics get in the way and nothing gets solved. So I believe that we need to use our community, reach out. During the wildfires, I went down to Wallace Marine Park and gave some masks out to the homeless people so that they weren't breathing in the poor air quality. These are the things that you can do to help the homeless people. Every small act counts, and charity is a great factor. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. The next question, and we will do our best to get to all of your questions that are in the chat. What is your position on campaign finance reform is the next question. And just one moment, please. Yes, that is a question. What is your position on campaign finance reform? And we'll start back with Senator Boles. You have 2 minutes. Senator.
Sorry, I thought you were going to mix up the order.
Oh, I might do that at some point.
Well, there's only 2 questions that you guys are in. So anyway, campaign finance reform. I believe in campaign finance reform. I believe in a transparency rules that affect both parties, all 3 parties, all 5 parties, actually. Everyone who's running for office needs to have the opportunity to show who their supporters are, where their money's coming from. I supported the ballot measure that we're voting on here. I voted for that twice to refer it to a vote of the people. And I believe that, campaigns have just gotten ridiculously expensive. So I think you need to have campaign finance reform that still allows freedom of speech, freedom of expression, all the things that we hold dear. But yeah, I think that there are things that we just need to make sure that when we're doing campaign finance reform, that there aren't ways to get around the the conversation and the goals that we all hold to. Again, transparency and accountability are present. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator. Dr. Patterson, if you'd like to comment, you have 2 minutes.
Oh, thank you. Well, I believe that the way a person votes indicates where their values are. And our current senator, Senator Boles, when she was in the House in 2019, voted against campaign finance reform, House Bill 2983, which would have required disclosure of organizations giving certain monetary donations to campaigns, giving at least, in other words, if it says requires the disclosure of organizations giving a minimum of $50,000 for advertisements involving legislative candidates and $250,000 for statewide races. And I very much support campaign finance reform similar to the Measure 107, which would cap the amount given by individuals and would require the disclosure of money given from other organizations, whether it be through other PACs than to a candidate. It's clear we need to make campaigns more accessible for all people who want to run for office. And as we currently have our campaign finance right now, that's not the case.
Great, thank you, Dr. Patterson. Mr. Rickey, what is your position on campaign finance reform?
As a minor party for campaign finance reform, we don't have the luxury of mega donors or super PACs giving us thousands and thousands of dollars. We rely on individual grassroots people. To limit what they can donate to us hurts minor parties as opposed to helping them. It doesn't level the playing field. I believe that there needs to be transparency in our campaign finance laws, but no restrictions. Thank you.
Thank you all for your answers. We'll continue on with some additional questions. And Mr. Rickey, we will start with you on this one. To our Senate candidates, how can the pool of public housing, subsidized, affordable, et cetera, be increased? And 2 minutes to you, Mr. Rickey.
Thank you. I don't think we need to increase the pool of public housing, subsidized or affordable. I believe in the free market approach, which would be to create more supply to alleviate the demand of housing. Again, if the government cuts the red tape, changes some zoning laws, we could build houses that would drive the prices down naturally, as opposed to getting the government involved and artificially controlling the prices. I believe that we should be building more houses faster, and that is how we would tackle affordable housing. Thank you.
Great, and Dr. Patterson, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, until we refund HUD at a level that's caught up with the population growth of our country since the mid-1980s, we're going to have a hard time getting much federal support for subsidized housing. So we're going to have to be creative at the state and at the city and county level. For example, there is housing through the county for people with developmental disabilities and mental health issues. We need to work with landlords there's a shortage of landlords. And so we need to work with landlords to find ways to encourage them to offer their housing to folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities or with mental health issues, so that some of the money that is available can be used. Having said that, we also have taken some actions to provide middle housing, to offer zoning for middle housing. And so once we can get moving on developing more of that fits within the character of the neighborhood, that will be another option to add to the housing stock. Raising the minimum wage will help to make housing more affordable as well. And reducing the cost of healthcare, reducing the cost of childcare, reducing the cost of college will help put more money in people's pockets to be able to make housing more affordable too.
Thank you, Dr. Patterson. Senator Boles, you have
Thank
2
you.
minutes.
Thank you, Jason. First of all, I don't think our goal should be more government housing. Government housing is a stopgap. It's a solution that is needed in periods of time for different people's lives. But this should not be a goal that we just expand more and more government housing. I actually agree with a lot of the comments that Taylor Rickey had commented about increasing opportunity by lowering the cost of build, lowering all the zoning and the regulations and the permitting processes and all those things that add to the cost of new construction, which drives housing choices, drives it up. We also, Deb talked about, encouraging landlords. Well, in the legislature, we just keep passing legislation that encourages landlords to get out of being a landlord. And so we have to look at these pieces of legislation and a balanced practice that you can provide opportunity for housing, but at the same time, you don't punish the person providing the opportunity. And so I think there's a lot of, again, you got to get all the parties at the table and let them speak and let them be heard and let them participate in solutions. And that's what I will continue to advocate for, but that has not been my experience. And I think some of the things that the majority party has been driving through the legislature is actually increasing our housing problems, not solving them. So I look forward to continuing to work on these issues. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Boles. It looks like we're going to have time. We've had several questions for the senator candidates, and we may have enough time for one or two more questions. We're going to ask this next question, and the question is, what is your plan to increase states' revenue? What is your plan to shift the burden of paying for public services from the working class to corporations and the rich? And Dr. Patterson, we will start with you with 2 minutes.
Well, one of the ways to increase the state's revenue is to support small businesses, not to tax them more, because I was in favor of the Student Success Act, which actually reduces the tax burdens on small businesses. My opponent has voted against the Student Success Act, but it also did ask largest corporations to pay their fair share. I also believe that billionaires should pay their fair share all around the country, but also we should be helping to support small businesses who, again, provide about half the jobs in our economy to grow their businesses. And so I would be very much in favor of helping to support entrepreneurship, support the work of things like the Chemeketa Business Incubator, the wonderful work being done over at Indy Commons to support small businesses there. To grow our economy, we need to remove barriers to trade for our agricultural products. Just think, as we grow our economy in that way, we will have more revenue. Very surprisingly and pleasantly for the budget, because we've not had as much of a hit. We won't have to probably add as much as we thought we would, but what we are going to have to do is speak up for the people who've been so sadly hurt by the uneven recession. Farm workers, those who've been laid off, restaurant workers, a lot of folks have been hit really hard. And so we need to work very hard to make sure that they're not left behind in this as we rebuild our economy and as we move forward to make sure this is an organ that leaves no one behind.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Patterson. And we'll move back to Senator Boles. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Please let me know if you would like me to repeat the question.
No, I'm still stunned by the fact that Reverend Dr. Patterson thinks that the gross receipts tax lowered people's costs. The Student Success Act, which has many things that I support. I am a huge supporter of funding education and funding it first, but they tied it to an economic system that has so many layers of cost to working families, to businesses, that you have, people that don't make any money but have to take out loans in order to pay for their tax costs for the state of Oregon, especially in the agriculture community. They were hit hugely on this. And so, again, we were not allowed as a minority party to help mitigate some of those devastating taxes that are hitting working families all across my district. We do not have enough billionaires and large corporations to carry the $3 billion tax increase that happened in 2019. And then I'm already hearing conversations from the majority party about a new tax revenue proposals for 2021. In the middle of an economic crisis and recession where people cannot do their jobs, when we have outrageous unemployment, to talk about increasing taxes on these small businesses and the working families across this community is ridiculous. So I believe our revenue is about getting people back to work, letting people have the opportunity to have success in their small companies, and working together to get through this crisis that we're in. So anyway, I feel pretty strongly about this, and let's just literally look at issues, how they actually happened. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Senator. And Mr. Rickey, if you would like, you have 2 minutes. Comment, please let me know if you need the question repeated.
No, thank you. My plan to shift the burden of pay for public services from the working class to the corporations and the rich is very simple. We lower taxes for everyone, including the rich and the corporations. That brings more corporations in, brings in more jobs. I believe that places like Nike, Intel, places, Amazon, just here in Salem, we need to get these people to pay more taxes for their business than the tax breaks that they're currently getting. I believe that if we lower taxes, people will actually have more revenue by more people having jobs when these businesses come in. And so let me read the other part. Increase state revenue. And all right, thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Rickey. Looks like we are great. Looks like we are into, we are a half hour into our first segment. I'd like to take a second to thank you, to say thank you to all of the Senate candidates for District 10, Senator Boles, Reverend Dr. Patterson, and Mr. Taylor Rickey. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you stay on. Would love to see some questions from you for our, what we're going to discuss next is our House Representative for District 20. And thank you. I see that Representative Evans is with us this evening. I'm always excited to see you, Representative Evans.
I'm excited too.
Is Dr. Pierce here? I don't believe. Looks like we may be waiting for Dr. Pierce. Representative Evans, you have 3 minutes to introduce yourself, sir.
All right, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. This is my fourth campaign for elective office in House District 20. I've certainly enjoyed and I'm still humbled by the fact that I've been given the opportunity to serve over the last 6 years, and I'd like to put that work, that experience, that leadership skill that I've learned back into the effort to help House District 20 navigate what I happen to believe are the most important challenges of our lifetime. In terms of introduction, I think three things really matter for our campaign. They're kind of themes as well as aspirations: service, leadership, and results. Over the course of the last 30 years, I've served this community as a teacher, as a military officer, retiring in 2013, as a local government guy, as a mayor, school board member, city councilor, and then on a number of appointed advisory boards, budget committees, et cetera. In the state government, I was senior policy advisor on veterans and emergency preparedness to Governor Kulongoski. I stepped out for about a year and a half to do private sector stuff, and then I was called back to the classroom and eventually got an opportunity to run for elective office again for House District 20. My entire life is about trying to find a way to resolve difficult problems. And that's what leadership really is all about. In the military, I was a master air battle manager with responsibilities in over 4.5 years in combat zones, theaters across the world. My job was to ensure that we prosecuted the targets as efficiently and effectively as possible with minimum loss of life to our troops. As a senior policy advisor and the leader of the Governor's Task Force on Veteran Services, we put together the report that we're still actually using as a baseline to optimize the monies made available through ballot measure 96. And as a committee chair of the only committee in the House that has 4 Republicans and 4 Democrats, we pride ourselves on making sure that we push out good policy regardless of who came up with it. And we do it on a generally unanimous basis. I think only 2 votes have not been 8-0. In each of those cases, the person who voted no asked me beforehand if it was okay, but it was a local political thing they needed to do. I think leadership matters, especially when we're trying to navigate the contagion of COVID, the post-wildfire events, and quite frankly, some of the most important racial justice opportunities of the last 200 years. I think the results that we've been able to produce over the last 6 years are pretty important. Among them, we've put the rehabilitation, the seismic rehabilitation of the Center Street Bridge. That will take place in the next couple of years. It's a done deal in terms of funding. That was a hard fight, but it will make sure that people can get to their hospitals back and forth after a major seismic event. We fought for funding for new construction at Western Oregon University and throughout the district. We have found matching funding for the Mike McLaren Center for Student Success, for YMCA Court Care, a number of other programs, including career technical education. And more importantly, we actually led the fight on some of the issues that you heard about earlier this evening. The Student Success Act, which was $1 billion of investment. We fought for paid family leave, paid sick leave, increases in minimum wage that were tailored to regional economies. And we fought to make the environment better, safer, and hopefully more sustainable through fighting to defend the low carbon fuel standard and getting Oregon out of coal generated power by 2040.
Representative Evans, thank you. Your 3 minutes is past, and I'm sorry to have to interrupt you. And I know that your opponent, also running for House District 20, Dr. Pierce, is not present with us at the moment. I do want to make sure that we have the opportunity to let our attendees ask some questions.
Sure.
If we don't have any questions, I will be happy to let you continue on with your record of work.
Never give a speech teacher too much time.
That's right. Let's. Great. We have our first question in. What do you think about President Trump's refusal to denounce white supremacists? Do you believe that Black Lives Matter?
I'm going to separate those into 2 categories. I think Black Lives Matter is an important advocacy group that, quite frankly, has brought about a convergence of conversation, discussion, and dialogue that's been literally centuries in the making. So I happen to believe Black Lives Matter is an important group. Unfortunately, too many people, I think, don't understand that Black Lives Matter does not suggest that other lives don't matter, but rather that Black Lives Matter are too often undervalued, underappreciated, and just forgotten. As far as the president's cowardice having to do with white supremacy and recognizing that there needs to be change to structural racism, I think I would like to say his refusal to deny white supremacy is the most important reason I happen to think he is a terrible human being. But unfortunately, he actually went one step farther when he explained to, and it has been reported and proven, that military members, especially those that die in service to their country, are suckers and losers. So I think that's, it's certainly in the top 10 lists of why I think this is a repugnant leader that currently is our president. And I pray every day for his long health and that he loses re-election so that he remembers the rest of his long life what he did.
Thank you for your answer there to perhaps a more difficult question, and to any of our attendees, and also Representative Evans, thank you for your service.
So thank you. Sure.
Our next question, what state and federal assets are available to renters who lost all possessions in the recent fires? What do they do to start over?
That's an outstanding question. So whoever came up with it, thank you. As the chair of the House Committee on Veterans and Emergency Preparedness, this is kind of one of the things that we do. If the federal government was the federal government of George Herbert Walker Bush, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, even the last 2 years of the W administration, they would be getting federal assistance right now. Unfortunately, FEMA has been one of those agencies that has been robbed to build, quote unquote, the wall, so that many of the programs that were devised, quite frankly, for a lot of the floods and hurricanes that happen in the South and Southeast, they are depleted. So what is happening right now is FEMA does have an FCO in place, the federal coordinating officer. They do have a recovery center that is being stood up. The governor appointed today a leader for that effort. I understand Matt Garrett, who I think is an outstanding choice for that job. And what we're going to have to do is weave together state and federal and local programs for rebuilding of structures, rebuilding of communities and lives. It's important to remember that under FEMA, there's many different ways to fund things, and that sometimes names are really funny. Public assistance, for example, doesn't mean serving the public individually. Public assistance is generally for large infrastructure investments. The individual assistance having to do with housing, healthcare, medical, and other things like that, they soon will be made available. And again, in a partnership, federal money coming in to basically backfill state efforts. Most of the efforts, however, just to be truthful, are going to be led at the county level anyway, through the emergency manager and through the various nonprofits and housing specialists. The immediate short-term care of the folks as we rebuild is certainly in the hands of the nonprofits. But we also need to make sure that the fire marshal's office can get in through a program that they've developed that we passed actually a couple of years back to see the seismic and the health and safety construction standards of the structures that are still standing to see if people can actually go back in them. So there's a number of things. I think that the good news is people recognize that we have a lot of work to do, and the federal government right now is trying to assist us, which is a good change. And I think that the state and federal communication at this point is a lot better than it has been for the COVID experience. I don't want to talk too much. That's why I shut myself off there.
No, thank you for keeping an eye on the time there, Representative Evans. Looks like, so you were mentioning in your introduction some information about emergency preparedness.
Yep.
And if you could speak for just a couple minutes about what you have done, but what you will continue to do to help the Polk County areas and the areas that you serve, especially close in West Salem, continue to be prepared for a natural disaster such as an earthquake,
right,
or even potentially fires even.
Right.
Thank you.
So over the last 4 years, as chair of the House Vets and Emergency Preparedness Committee, we've made a number of investments around the state. We have a bill I call Lend-Lease. The technical title is SPIRE. Nonetheless, it is a program that put $10 million of bonding into purchase of standardized equipment for placement, pre-disaster placement throughout the state of Oregon. So the idea is this. Many of the small communities, many of the nonprofits like your CERT program in West Salem, it's a very strong program. Some cities like Vernonia, some counties like Curry, they don't necessarily have the ability to even keep 24/7 operations, much less buy needed equipment that would really save lives. Well, we said there's a state interest in pre-positioning equipment as long as if we need it somewhere else, we can use it somewhere else. And as long as it's standardized so that one operator in Vernonia, for example, and one operator in Clackamas County know how to use the same machine. So we put together a list. We made that list available. We had stakeholders here in Polk County. There were a number of awards. Generators were at the top of the list. In some cases, they were brush trucks, fire fighting vehicles. In some others, it was vans for basically transporting at-risk populations. And the idea was to leverage the ability of the state to buy in bulk and buy economies of scale and put these pieces of equipment out into these areas. And what the partnership is dependent upon is that user operating it and maintaining it in a fashion that makes sure that if the state needs it for some other disaster, we can plug and play and move it somewhere else. At the end of its natural life in terms of the value of the equipment, the user that was assigned that piece of equipment actually gets first dibs. In terms of other things that we have been working on, we have been working on seismic education. We've been working on, again, we passed a bill, the fire marshal's office, we weren't able to fund it because of the aforementioned, people left the building a little early in 19 and a little early in 20, and we weren't able to get some of those things funded. But the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office has a line item for a teaching program that basically ensures that architects and engineers know how to determine whether buildings are safe to go back into. Other things that we've worked on in terms of water purification, we actually put some ROPUs, reverse osmotic water purification units out there. And we have worked on increasing available money for training and exercises. What we plan on doing in the future, and this is the thing that has been the most frustrating, quite frankly, over the last 2 years, we've had bipartisan, bicameral support, both in the Senate and the House, Republicans and Democrats, recognizing that our emergency system does not work. We have to reform our emergency management complex. The structures and systems that are in place are not sufficient for the 21st century. We need to realign them. We need to simplify the core mission. And then we need to find steady state sustainable funds for the specific missions. I'll give you an example.
Representative Evans, before you carry on, and if we have time, we'll come back to that example. Sure. We have a question from our participant in the chat, and the
Sure.
question is, if you could please comment on the future, as you have, if any, of another bridge over the Willamette River, anywhere, and perhaps additional ferries or any other resources for bridge crossing, and where would that bridge potentially be?
Sure.
Great, go ahead, and you have 2 minutes.
Well, one of the unusual and unfortunate realities of running for office in House District 20 over the past 6 years is every time I run, my opponents find new ways to make up what I like to call lies, damn lies, statistics, and anything that a certain political consultant says. So for several years, people said I was anti-bridge, which I'm really not. I actually love public infrastructure probably more than I should, being a former mayor. I just believe that you look at the world the way it is, not the way you want it. So here's what I mean by that. The push a while back for a Salem bridge, it wasn't going to happen because of political reasons and money reasons. It just wasn't going to happen. So instead of getting involved in that fight, I fought because my grandpa taught me to be conservative, meaning that you take care of the things you have first before you buy something new. I wanted at least one life safety bridge upgraded. That money has been set aside. West Salem will have a way to get into the rest of Salem because of the upgrade to the Center Street Bridge. The next priority, because we have that one secured, was I put forward House Bill 2971 in the 2019 session. It would create a capital city region special bridge district. And let me explain why. We have 2 counties led by Republican county commissions. We have a city that is led nominally by Democrat, quote unquote, progressive perspectives. And we've got any number of issues involving the bridge or potential bridge that was being talked about. Where it was going to be wasn't going to happen. So we needed to figure out where it could go. Of the places that it could go, it's going to probably be outside the city limits, which means the city has a role, but it doesn't necessarily own the property. It may be a county, but it may also not own the property because it may actually be close to perhaps where Shamawa is, and there might be some federal land issues. So the deal was, let's do what they did to build a Golden Gate Bridge. Now everybody says, wait a minute, what do you mean Golden Gate Bridge? Well, surprise, surprise, when politics got in the way down in San Francisco, Oakland, and the cities around, nobody wanted to pave, even though everybody wanted a bridge. What a special bridge district does is 2 things. Number 1, it provides a bigger table for everybody to be involved that wants to be involved. It provides larger opportunities for where we want to put the bridge, probably at lower cost. I would say north of Kaiser, probably. And the most important thing is once it exists, it then allows for the state to actually invest money that the state knows the local government doesn't get because of all the non-taxable properties that are in the cities of Salem and Kaiser, et cetera. So if we create it, the theory is more hands are in it. We can determine where the bridge or bridges make sense. And at the same time, provide a conduit that we can funnel some state money in because of the opportunity cost lost with our non-taxable properties. I happen to believe that's the best step forward. I actually had great support. The speaker was on board until Kevin Cameron came in and killed it because he hadn't read the bill. He thought the bill was actually creating a new tax district when the bill actually simply amended the special district law and gave a 27th category where if the citizens of that region want to do it, they can make it happen. That's what we were trying to push. That's what I'm going to push again in 2021, because I think it's critical that we have a long-term plan for another crossing, but at a strategic place, not exactly where people had it before.
Thank you, Representative Evans.
Sure.
Looks like we have another question. We're waiting for some clarification on what that question pertains to.
If I could take the opportunity to say something, I'd like to.
We will give you the floor, sir.
Okay. So again, I would be saying the same thing, and I did last week if my opponent was here. There is evidently, while you're on this call right now, there's a new television attack ad. This one on top of the one that was put out last week that said I wanted to defund the police, which is absolutely not what I want to do and has been proven demonstrably false. The new one is even better. The new one says I didn't pay my personal property taxes. I'm sorry, personal income taxes. I want to be very clear about a couple of things. I understand politics can be rough and tumble. I have no problem with people taking shots at my votes. Sometimes even I wonder if it's a 51-49 call. I get that. I pay my taxes. I serve my country. I don't lie when it comes to policy. And I happen to believe that we need more police, not less police. So just want to make sure everybody's clear as you go throughout the rest of the week. We are in the season where there are lies, damn lies, statistics, and pretty much anything certain political people say. And I want to make sure you know from me that a lot of that stuff's not true.
Great. Thank you, Representative Evans. Looks like we got some clarification on that question, mostly for myself, so I could
Great.
ask it.
I'll do my best.
Yes. In regards to, looks like in reference to the equipment for emergencies.
Yes.
Can citizens expect that deployment purchase of equipment to occur in the near future? Say
some of it's already been deployed. So Spire 1, which was the first iteration, most of that equipment's already been deployed. We're working now on Spire 2. So yes, we can expect deployment. In many cases, it's already out there. In fact, during the fires, a number of generators were used. And in the upcoming flood season, I know that there are a number of communities that are using the mobile sandbag filler system that we added to the list to purchase. So in most cases, Those have already been purchased and fielded. Now, there are a couple of pieces of equipment that took a little bit of time because of the COVID slowdown in terms of industrial production. But most of the stuff was actually taken care of before we came into the special sessions this year.
Thank you, Representative Evans.
Sure. But we need your help to get Spire 2 passed.
Yeah. Looks like until we just have a couple more minutes for House District 20 candidates. Looks like your opponent has still not taken the time to join us this evening. It looks like, so you had mentioned Spire 21 is the next step?
Spire 2.
Spire 2, the next step.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about that next step?
Sure.
Well, we have a few more minutes.
Sure. So we got to get it passed, but what we're planning on doing with Representative Nathanson and some others, this one would be about a $15 million instead of a $10 million purchase. And what we would be doing is about $5 million of it would be focused, $4.5 to $5 million of it would be focused on a very specialized training that is, quite frankly, sometimes confused with search and rescue. So there's two types of search and rescue. Search and rescue that most people think of in terms of somebody's lost in the woods and they're going to go try to find them. Urban search and rescue is really it's the best way to understand urban search and rescue is confined space, post-catastrophic event, trying to find anybody who may still be alive, etc. That's very expensive to maintain. The state of Oregon used to have 2 teams. We were forced to cut them during the Great Recession, and most of those teams never really came back. So between Eugene and Portland, we can probably cobble together half of a team. But even then, I'm not sure I'd send the kids in because they don't get the training that they should have. So by putting $4.5 to $5 million in, we'll be able to stand up 2 full teams, equip the 2 full teams with enough training dollars that we have them for, quite frankly, events like this last wildfire and everything else. The other 10 million will go towards standard type of equipment, a next layer. So for example, communications. One of the things that we still have a number of places that have anywhere between VHF, 700, 800 megahertz, and they can't talk to each other in the same fire. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We have some places that really what they need is they need mobile morgues or mobile tents that can actually help support when they have to do catastrophic, especially cadaver identification. So we had a list that we were able to work through last time. And the process is very simple. Once the bill is passed, the Oregon Homeland Security Council works with the emergency management folks from around the state. We hold a stakeholders meeting. There's a conference where the director of OEM basically brings people in, says, what's the most important tools you need? And this is the most important part. Instead of the way that normal grants work, where they give you money and say, go buy what you want. The idea here is, no. We don't want money to be wasted on this type of car with a shiny light and that type of generator that does or doesn't have this thing. We get the requirements of the types of equipment. We look at what we can afford, and then we actually use the state purchasing power to go out and buy X number of items, okay? That's the process that we're hopefully going to be able to pass in 2021. My goal is to have it fielded by 2022.
Great. Thank you, Representative Paul Evans, for joining us this evening. We appreciate your service and your time. Actually, it looks like actually, it looks like we have just a few more minutes if you want any closing comments.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Great. We'll give you about 2 minutes for closing comments, sir.
Here's what I need. Whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, Independent, Oregon Working Families Party, Pacific Power, or even Pirate Party, which Oregon does have, by the way. Here's what I need. Whatever happens this election, whether your guy or gal gets elected or not, after you take the weekend to feel sad about whatever it is you didn't or you did get, whatever, for the love of God, please reach across the fence toward your neighbor to the left and your neighbor to the right. And if they have a different view than you, get some ice cream, sit down and try to work through it. It is not an inherent Republican issue that our country is where it's at. It is a Republican and Democratic political spectacle. Our state does not have to look like the federal government. Our state is comprised of people who care more about our people and place than any other state in the union. We are passive aggressive, which means sometimes we don't like to say things that might hurt feelings. On the other hand, the only way we're going to get through this together is if we actually are honest with each other and we love each other enough to love each other even when we disagree. We have to get through this together, and it starts individually. It starts with each person, regardless of your politics. We are in this together, and the only way we're going to actually get through this contagion, get through the wildfires, get through the seismic events that are coming and we know will come and be on the way, is if we actually know our neighbors, work together, love them for the differences that we may have, and find a way to actually bridge those divides. So I hope that you can do that. I hope to earn your vote in this campaign. If not, understand. Still want to work with you if I get the chance. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you for joining us, Representative Evans, House District 20. Thank you so much. As we move into this next segment, which is our last segment for Polk County Board of Commissioners, we do want to remind everybody that this session is being recorded. Each candidate has had 3 minutes to introduce themselves. Questions should be entered into the chat. If you have questions for any of our candidates, we will do our best to make sure that those questions get asked and answered by our candidates this evening. And it looks like Commissioner Lyle Mordhorst is with us this evening. And
hello, Jason.
Hello, Commissioner. Thank you for joining us. Give me just a moment here. See if, and do we have Danny Jaffer with us this evening, who is also running for the seat? Great. Let me just. And great. Doesn't look like Mr. Jaffer is with us this evening. And Micki, if you'd be so kind to pin Lyle, then Mr. Commissioner, if you would please, you have 3 minutes to introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Polk County Commissioner Lyle Mordhorst. I was appointed to the position January 2019 when Jennifer Wheeler could no longer finish her term. I was blessed to be selected of the committee, and it's been a great 2 years. Huge learning curve, but I've been very effective. I'm 63 years old. I'm married. I have 2 kids. I was very active in West Salem. I ran the West Salem Schwab store for the past 20 years, where I was very involved in City of Salem action committees, redevelopment advisory boards. I was the first president of the West Salem High School Education Foundation, setting up the nonprofit up there with 501(c)(3). I've been involved in schools my entire life. I believe that our kids need to be in school. They are tomorrow's future. We need to make sure that we give them every opportunity we can while they're within school age. My heart is with infrastructure and transportation. The third bridge getting knocked down. That was one small setback. What we need to do now is focus on what we do have. And how do we make what we do have more efficient and safer for our constituents? So Highway 22, the corridor, is a key component for Polk County. That is the connector for us to get to our goods to I-5 corridor, to shipping lanes and selling. Our industries, getting their supplies and their finished goods out. I'm sorry, the screen just changed on me and threw me off there for a minute. But bottom line is, I want to kind of touch what Paul just commented on. And he's absolutely right. I'm a connector. I believe in bringing people together. One person is one person, one mind. It's so much better when we get more people to the counter, to the table, and we can talk with a dialogue to find out those differences, mitigate, and find ways that we're all happy with. That is the key to having a great community. Polk County is an amazing place to live, and I'm very proud and very humbled to have served on the commissioner so far. I'm looking forward to another 4 years.
Thank you, Commissioner Mordhorst. We're going to open it up to any questions. Great. We don't currently have any questions in the chat, Commissioner, and your opponent is not here with us this evening. If you could please talk to us a little bit about the homeless population, homeless crisis, what the Polk County Board of Commissioners has been doing to address this problem in the area that it serves, and what it looks to do in the upcoming 2021 year.
So I am the liaison for the Board of Commissioners for homeless population. I serve on the Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency and also the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance. And the Alliance, we're trying to create our own continuum of care so we can find or apply directly to HUD for funding to help us address our homeless issues in Salem. Salem's had a homeless issue for years. They were all down in a rock pit in West Salem. They were kind of out of sight and out of mind. We always talked about them, but nobody ever really addressed the issue. We had to remove the people from the rock pit a year ago, and the owner of the rock pit was getting ready to develop that piece of property. When we ran them out of the rock pit, they all relocated to downtown. That's when everybody realized that we had a homeless issue. It became right out front Main Street. And it's a very sad issue. There's a lot of mental issues, a lot of drug addiction, alcohol. But between the Community Action Agency and Arches and some of the housing, we have created a housing first program that we're moving forward with at this time. So we can get them in the house, then we can get them the counselors and the people to address their needs. And it is really sad to find somebody when you get him into an apartment and he sleeps in the doorway because he's not comfortable inside a closed room. So his first 4 nights of apartment, he sleeps outside the front door with the door open. So that is a lot of issues we have to work through. There is no one answer. One thing that I have done locally for the West Salem Neighborhood Association, because of the theft issue that has sprung up within our businesses in the Wallace Road and Edgewater District, was I got our local judge, our district attorney, our sheriff, and city police station together. And we sat down figuring out ways that we could help mitigate our businesses, because we talked about nonprofits. Our nonprofits are supported by our locally owned businesses. The Ross grocery stores, the West Salem Hardwares, the Withnell Dodge car dealerships. Those locally owned businesses are the ones that support our nonprofits. So we have to find ways to protect them, but at the same time, address the issue at hand. With the COVID restrictions, nobody's wanting to put anybody in jail because we might subject the entire jail to COVID and have a pandemic on our hands. So what we've done is we've created a 3 to 4 cell rotational thing. So the first time someone gets caught shoplifting, they will be cited, and they'll also have a trespass put on them. And then they'll be released. But if they go back to that business, then they will be arrested, and there will be some jail time to serve because of that. It's a small step, but until we find ways to address our housing, that is a huge need. I think we're in the right spot, but it's going to take some time. But we're just trying to do the small steps to help everybody along and get through this.
Thank you, Commissioner Mordhorst. We have a question in the chat for you. Can you talk some about the accomplishments so far in your time in office in regards to transportation and public safety in Polk County as a whole?
Yeah, one of the first things I ran into, and I was asked to serve in this committee all the way back in like 2004, and that was a Dokes Ferry Road interchange on the Highway 22. That is a very dangerous intersection. There's been a lot of accidents. The people come down Dokes Ferry, they turn left on the Highway 22 on a 4-lane road. There's lots of T-bones and stuff. ODOT had a $1.9 million project slated for the repair. The issue is the hillside has some slippage in it. So there is some slide ground there. So with the movement, they didn't want to trigger a landslide. So they're kind of backed away. When I approached that idea, why don't we just eliminate the left-hand turn lane with candlesticks? Today, when you go through there, there's candlesticks down the middle of that. There's a sign that we put up, 3 new signs stating no left-hand turn onto Highway 22 off of Dokes Ferry. Since that time, there's been no accidents at that intersection. It only took us 4 months to get it done. Instead of 1.9 million, it was like $16,000. So that was one of the first things right out of the chute. That was just literally thinking outside the box, taking a look at it from a different perspective. Highway 22 in Perrydale, last fall, we had a gentleman from Willamine, an elderly gentleman, be killed at the intersection. That intersection has had a 500% increase over the last 5 years on accident ratings. It's had 2 fatalities and numerous accidents. What we did was we got a local meeting together at the Perrydale High School. We had over 100 people in attendance. ODOT could not make it, so I was representing ODOT at that time, where I'd only been a manager for or a commissioner for about 9 months. And we just created a program or a plan to get ODOT's attention.
Commissioner, looks like we're having a technical difficulty here. If you could unmute yourself, there we go.
There we go. How's that?
Yeah, looks like, looks like we'll let you come back to that. We have another question in the chat box. And we have a participant that has a statement question of Commissioner. I apologize if I'm wrong, but I believe I saw you driving in a caravan of Trump supporters, possibly a timber unity rally about a month ago. If that was you, are those your values? Are those the values that you bring to the Polk County Commission?
So yes, I was in that. It was a GOP rally, and I was there. I do believe in timber unity. I believe that our timber is there to harvest. It is a crop that offers a lot of jobs. I grew up in a timber industry, small town, where Forest Service was self-maintaining, self-sustaining. It provided hundreds of jobs to our community, sawmills, planers, we had cabinet shops. And it's sad to see where today our forest has diminished as far as logging. I believe in the global warming, but I know that new timber is exciting. It brings life to forests. New timber growing helps reduce that carbon footprint. And it's there. Right now, we've just suffered all of these devastating fires. And that timber is going to fall over and rot. I would love to be able to see programs that we could get up in there and salvage that to make homes. We have a home shortage right now. And right now, lumber prices are soaring because there's becoming a shortage. And those are areas it's right here. Oregon has more natural resources at its fingertips that we could just maintain forever. It's just like a farmer growing a crop. You harvest it, you replant, you maintain, you take care of it, and then you harvest it again. So yes, that's always been my heart and soul.
Great. Thank you for answering the question. could you speak to, Commissioner, what are you doing to support renewable energy resources and kind of pivot potentially some of those timber jobs into other areas of renewable energy in Polk County?
So renewable energy, we do have a program right now that we started to help put in a solar farm. There's some tax credits there that allow you to amortize that cost over a period of time to make it more affordable. I believe that electric cars are the future, but we still need that transportation infrastructure. I would like to see more tax credits, but tax credits are not really at a county level. That's more of a state level. But at the same time, I'm one of those guys, I don't mind going to the Capitol, talking to all of them and seeing what we can come up with jointly for our local areas.
Thank you. Do we currently have any other questions in the chat? Let me just check the chat. Commissioner, we don't currently have any additional questions in the chat, but I would like to have you proposed or been involved in any plans for public transportation to continue to connect areas of Dallas, Independence, Monmouth, and West Salem? So there is better and easier accessibility for the residents connecting those cities within Polk County.
Yes, we've worked with Chariots, our local buses routes, trying to find ways that can make routes to our Polk County residents and make it more conducive to their job schedules. Also, Falls City is a small town backside of Polk County behind Dallas, where there's a lot of low-income families back there where they have one car. Dad goes to work, mom cannot go to the grocery store, she can't get the kids to the dentist or the doctors. So we started what they call Falls City Connect. Polk County purchased a van, we hired a driver, and through our human resources and outreach group, we started providing that 3 days a week. So they can get out here to the doctors and dentists. It's worked out amazing. 1 day a week, we take them to Independence. 2 days a week, we bring them to Dallas. And it's been just accepted beyond belief.
Great, Commissioner. Going back to a discussion of forests, do you disagree that private forests were cut faster than they could grow back and have pressured public forest managers to stop multi-use sustainability management and cut faster like private forests?
The well-ran private forests are sustainable. You have the one out of Philomath, and I'm drawing a blank on its name. They've been over 100 years on the same amount of property, still cutting the same amount of timber, because you get it into a rotational basis. You plant it, you cultivate it, and in about 40 years, we have mature trees ready to harvest and cut again. There are corporations, and just like all walks of life and everything, that will buy a piece of property and they'll strip it and they sell the property back. It's very sad. Most states now have restrictions on that, to where after you have logged a piece of property, you have so many, it's like 2 years to replant. And I think those are the type of things we need to keep. I like our green spaces. I love our mountains and our trees. And I want to make sure that our kids have those trails that they can hike and waterfalls to explore.
Great, thank you. Our next question, are you supportive of Polk County employee unions? Are you a collaborative partner when the union comes to management and asks for help solving problems? It's kind of double question there.
Absolutely. I mean, the greatest thing about Polk County is the people that work for Polk County. I get to work with some of the most amazing people, from the administrators to the last one hired. People come in there and they love working there because we created a family atmosphere. We are there for the people of Polk County. period. And everybody that comes in works there for a very short time, and they realize that that's why we're there. We take care of our employees. That's why we don't lose very many. We have very little turnover, and everybody strives to get on there because of the quality of atmosphere we have that we've created. And I didn't do that. That's what was in the predecessors before me, but I definitely am going to carry it on. It is amazing. I worked for Schwab, where we hired within, trained, and you give back, just like the person before you trained you. Polk County, I'm in awe of the teamwork and the attitude that our employees have. They're always looking for ways outside the box to make things more efficient, more creative, and better for us in our ways of life.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. We have another question in. Who approved the housing development on Highway 22?
Housing development, Highway 22. You mean as you enter?
Kind of right. I think
guess
that they're speaking kind of right across the Eola area where they're kind of pretty. They're just kind of leveling.
Moving all the dirt around?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not a housing development. That is a winery that's going in. That's a winery. So the gentleman owns the vineyard up on top of the hill, bought that, and he's putting a winery down there. That is the old governor's mansion. The house that's left standing there where everything's cleared all around it. Eola was actually the capital of Oregon at one day, and that was the governor's mansion. But that is soon to be a winery. That'll be beautiful right there above the river.
Great, and no doubt some extra jobs for folks. To the attendee who asked about the housing development on Highway 22, if you could provide me with some more specifics, I would like to make sure that the commissioner has an opportunity to address your question if in fact I did not reference the area of land that is currently being developed. And then Commissioner, we've got another question here. Could you speak about your level of support for Polk County? And oh, nope, looks like we already got that one. Let me see if we're missing any questions here. Commissioner, I want to go back to the housing project on Highway 22. You did answer the question. I'd like to go back to the Polk County employee unions, and specifically, it didn't sound like we really heard you talk about the unions or the employee unions. And if you could address those specifically, we would appreciate that.
Absolutely. So we just went through labor negotiations this spring. Our HR director is the one that, and our county administrator deals with them. They find out what their needs are and concerns are. We sit down and talk about it, and we find ways to meet in the middle and make sure that they are happy to come to work. When COVID hit, one of the biggest challenges that all of them hit us was, it's not safe here, I want to work from home. We made the purchase for the laptops. We got them out of the offices and at home where they felt safe. And that goes back huge when they come to negotiate. It's just not about wages, but it's about health benefits and things like that. Working around where their kids are now out of school. I don't have a babysitter. How do I work? Take your laptop and go home, be with your child, and work your job there. Unions are not everything to everybody. They're not the big bad wolf that everybody always talks about. It's all about how you treat them, how you approach them, and life in general. It's just like us talking here. It's to me, it's just another day at the office. I've dealt with people my entire life, and I always enjoy it.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner, for coming back to that question. Looks like we've got another question in the chat. Did you participate in any Black Lives Matter protests? And if so, what is your stance on Black Lives Matter?
So I did not participate in any protests. Black Lives Matter brings attention to an issue. And my stance are everybody matters. All lives are valued and respected. I mean, it doesn't matter. I ran a restaurant for 35 years. I dealt with every walk of life, every religion, every ethnic group, they're people just like we are. And everybody on this earth bleeds red. And that's bottom line is you don't look at what their outside is, you look at who the inside is. And all walks of life have people that cause problems and they have people that resolve problems. As long as we have an open dialogue and talk and we can sit down and discuss things in a rational manner, I'm 100% here. That is the bottom line. Paul Evans said it best. No matter what happens this next election, I'm hoping all of us can put our differences aside and come back and talk. Because when you have things like that rear up, something's wrong. Let's get together and let's figure what it is and put it behind us.
Great. Commissioner Lyle Mordhorst, everyone, thank you so much for joining us, Commissioner. Good luck to you in the upcoming election against your the other candidate running for Polk County Board of Commissioners, Danny Jaffer. Yeah, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much. I would like to just point out that I was the first commissioner out of West Salem in over 25 years when they appointed me. The 3 commissioners prior were all from Monmouth Independents. It's about time that we got representation from West Salem and other parts of the county. And that's why I'm here. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. I like the challenge and I like the rewards. And I'm very humbled to serve. So I appreciate for your vote on November 3rd. And thank you for having us today.
Great. Thank you for joining us. We're wrapping up here, folks. Just a quick thank you to all of our Senate candidates, House District 20 candidates, and commissioner candidates who took the time this evening to join our meet and greets with the West Salem Neighborhood Association. This was recorded and will be available on our Facebook channel for later viewing, as well as we will make it available on the West Salem Neighborhood Association YouTube channel. So that way those who were not able to attend this evening can have a chance to watch and hear what our candidates had to say this evening. And I think that concludes our meet and greet scheduled for tonight. Again, my name is Jason Staats with the West Salem Neighborhood Association. Thank you, everyone who joined us this evening.
Thank you, everyone.